I am so eager to share a conversation with you with the wonderful Cheryl Nembhard. Cheryl is an activist. She's a Canadian, and she has been doing the work for a long time, serving women and youth in Canada. And the reason I wanted Cheryl to share a little bit about her unique understanding on silencing women is because she has been doing this for such a long time. And as I researched for Pray Tell, I discovered that marginalized women are silenced at rates not known by white women. We're often told that when we're listening to the story, we are letting white women narrate the story as it comes to silencing women. And we really saw that during the rise of the Me Too movement. So Cheryl is here to really elaborate on how race and class contribute to the silencing of women. Cheryl, thank you so much for joining me.
I am so privileged and honored. I think this is such an important topic, and I commend you for doing it, Tiffany.
Thank you. In your work and in your expansive work, how have you seen marginalized women uniquely affected, um, especially within systems or power structures where they don't have a voice?
Yeah, my work is intentional around the areas of marginalized women and at-risk youth as a social justice advocate. I also run a not-for-profit organization as well. And so what I have noticed is um, it's almost like this sort of invisible glass ceiling, if you will. If we're talking first about structure, placement, organization, and growth, um, women of color are often boxed in, not allowed to soar, to be promoted, to be credited for their work. Many times they suffer plagiarism. We call it being prey to culture vultures, people who take our work, our voice, our unique slant, our expressionisms, and use them for themselves. And so what ends up happening as a result is that women who are truly gifted, truly called, equipped and mantled are being left out of the equation, left out of conversations, and not finding a seat at the table. And what's interesting is as women are rising and becoming more aware of their voice and beginning to petition and make their voices heard, ironically, about being used as a voice of excellence and
Tokenized, yeah.
professionalism and all of that. Yeah, all of that. Um, we are being silenced by being labeled.
Mm.
So we get labeled as in particularly with my culture, the angry Black woman, a passionate Black woman with ideas and feelings and, an intensity about her work is labeled as angry. Women who are trying to find a space at the table are labeled as complainers, as, troublemakers, those that are divisive. And so this sort of criminalization of women who are bold, women who are independent thinkers, is it's the invisible silencing.
Yeah.
It's a form of verbal abuse because the same characteristics, the same attributes found in a middle-aged white man would be called drive, would be called ingenuity. They're industrious, they're go-getters. All the praise would be given. Having the same qualities now for women of color, they are troublemakers, too loud, too disruptive, and so on.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how for many women, the gatekeepers were men of influence for us. And if they want to have a place in the system, they have to continue to appease the gatekeepers, continue to appease the one who let them in. And it really, I love how you said that's invisible glass ceiling, because nobody will name it, because in their mind, it doesn't exist. You should be happy to be in the room. Why would you want more? Why would you even consider equality with high-powered, influential men when you should just be thankful to have a place, right? And so just this idea, I love that, of how the labels, this verbal abuse, and it really does, it flips the narrative, and it puts the men in power to decide who tells the story and what story is told. That's so powerful. How have you seen in your work a shift? Where do you see a shift happening, where women are taking back their voice and sharing their truth the truth of their situations, of their lives, of their experiences, and who's leaning in to listen?
Yeah, I've been privileged to sit on many boards. One that works with at-risk youth, ages 12 to 18, called Brave. World Vision, Power of Her. We all know World Vision. That's a women's driven initiative for women globally. And also Women's Speaker Collective, which is an organization helping women literally reclaim their voice, not find their voice, because that the languaging is important
Wow, yeah.
here. We haven't lost our voice. It is just been silenced, and so we are reclaiming our voice again. And so what's happening now, what we're seeing are these sort of places and spaces where people are becoming painfully aware that their organization, their leadership, their congregation, the places of influence are looking the same. They're homogenous. So they're looking like white, male, Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah,
And so what's happened here is it's a global shift. It's not driven by us, it's a global shift. The world is demanding more.
yeah,
It's almost to the point that now that you look archaic, you look prehistoric if you do not have women at the table, if you do not have diversity at the table. It actually reflects negatively on your business, your organization, your ministry, your church. So there's a pressure, there's almost a pressure to diversify in these areas. So saying that for a particular reason. So what you're seeing now is what seems as movement, what seems as progression, sometimes is only that on paper.
right.
Sometimes it's only for optics. It's not legitimate power given, because those that hold power never want to share it, never want to yield space. And so what you're seeing are women of color taking up these sort of, I call them the little dangly positions of, seeming power, seeming position. But when you look at the board, when you look at the senior leadership, it still looks the same. So has change truly happened? No. Are we making inroads? Yes, but we're not quite there yet.
Yeah. I want to camp on what you just shared about this performative allyship where
Yeah,
it's like, hey, we don't want to look like we have mud on our face. We need to have women in positions of leadership or visibility.
yeah.
I've been prey to that. And in my mind, I thought, well, I'm going to make the most of this position. I've been given
Mhm.
it, and I know it's really performative. I don't have actual power, but I'm going to try to make the best of it. And my in my best intentions were definitely misconstrued because it didn't happen. And I think it became painfully obvious that I was tokenized in the system that I found myself in. And it really is so important that what is written in the bylaws, what's written on the cool logo on the wall, is actually in practice. And if it's not, I think the onus should not just be on the minority women to speak up and say, hey, you aren't putting your money where your mouth is, whether it's paid leave, whether it's income, whether it's access, whether it's power, whether it's resources, whatever the case may be. I think that this shift of not only do we want a place at the table, we want to be heard. We want to be
Mm,
heard. We want to actually be heard, not just be a pretty face. So I think that there really
mm.
has to be that responsibility on the bystanders who are witnessing this. Like you said, we're so easily labeled as like,
Yeah,
oh, they just want more, or you know,
yeah,
this is their culture, or just so
yeah.
easily dismissed. And the stereotypes run rampant, especially when they are so pervasive among majority culture. But if we are going to insist that women have a place,
Yeah.
everyone needs to insist that women have a place. I think one of the reasons I wanted to write Pray Tell is because I was continued to hear that, oh, it's the job of the woman who's been harmed, or the woman who's been silenced, or the woman who's been slandered to speak up. And nothing could be further from the truth. Scripture gives us countless example. Jesus himself gives us the example that it's all of our jobs to speak up on behalf of the silence and of the harm, and
Mhm.
offer your own resources, your own place of power to bend the moral arc toward justice.
Mhm. Oh my goodness, everything you said, I say yes and amen. And I'm so excited. I'm saying this, it's not a shameless plug because I'm telling you, I believe it wholeheartedly. I want your book to shift thinking.
Mm,
I'm so excited about the power behind your book and what it's going to do. And when it gets into the hands of those that are movers and shakers, change makers, decision makers, I want it to shift thinking. I want it to affect the landscape that we see. Because the truth of the matter is, we can shout at the top of our voice on every mountain, but until, and this is unfortunately this issue with our racial situation as well, as we're reckoning through racial issues, just the protests that we're seeing and people crying out. It's unfortunate, but nothing moves until our white allies come alongside, and then trajectory seems to happen. And so what we're asking for now is authentic allyship. And it's so funny that you said that, because this performative allyship, it's a bit of gaslighting. It's
yeah.
it's 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 another way of silencing our voice without doing, it's not a negative silencing, it's this positive silencing, but it's silencing nonetheless. Abuse is abuse is abuse. And so I'll give you this small position. Now be quiet.
Yeah.
I'll
Wow.
let you, yeah, I'll credit you, fine. You did the whole presentation, I'm presenting it, but I'll just give you a mention, okay, be quiet. And so these little things are happening to try to silence us. But the gaslighting piece is interesting because the people who are being victimized are now, there's a power shift that happens where I you're offended, you've stepped on my toe, and you're actually offended that I've said ouch. And so what happens is those who are offending, those who are abusing and injuring and silencing, are actually telling us, they're policing us on how to speak up, how to advocate. Don't be too loud, don't be too rude, don't be too outgoing, don't be too bold, woman. Know your place, woman. Stop protesting, and almost telling us how to respond to the pain. And so that in itself is so wrong. I want to speak to allyship really quickly because I came up with an acronym many months ago that I have used, I think, more than I even anticipated. I mean, it's just unreal how it has come up so many times. So here's what we're looking for, because allyship, we throw that word around. It's this buzzword that makes everyone feel good. It's this feel good word. We're an ally organization. Well, are you really? Let's go through the checklist. So A, are you acknowledging white privilege where you see it in your workplace?
Yeah.
Are you acknowledging it in your church, in your structures, whatever the leadership structure, organizational structure is? Are you calling it out when you see it? L and L for allyship. Are you in a posture of listening and learning? Are you listening to women of color? Are you allowing these people to share their experiences, their knowledge, their talents? Are you shifting and giving them the platform, which is why? The why of allyship. Are you yielding space?
Mm,
Are you giving up seats at the table? Are you releasing and yielding your power, or are you tight fisted with it still? Because nothing will happen if you do not share it. And here's a funny thing, only immature, insecure people think that if I yield power, I will lose it all.
wow. Yeah.
That's an immature way of thinking, as opposed to if I share power or if I yield space to people who have different voices, perspectives, cultural, upbringing. It adds to the richness of my organization. It adds to the richness of my church. It only makes us better if I bring all of this sort of color and tapestry to what I'm doing, as opposed to having one viewpoint. I mean, women are the backbone of nations,
Yeah.
of political movements. We've seen it already in and even in this, what the news is saying is women driven. Women really, when they come together, we are unstoppable. So why would you not want to work alongside, collaborate with, partner with all of that? And the S is stand alongside. The H is to help push the needle forward by not just saying, oh, I'm not misogynist, oh, I'm not racist, but actually being anti-misogynist and
Yep.
anti-racist. It's a different posture. It's more active, it's more intentional. It's not sitting by, like you said, and
Mhm.
allowing things to happen, but really looking for ways that you can extinguish that fire, that horrible fire of it. Yeah, I could go on, but I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Oh, that was
But
just, I,
yeah.
that is so useful, so helpful, and
Hmm.
an actual checklist and yielding power. This idea that there's something to lose when you yield power, and in reality, there's something to gain. In reality,
All to gain. Yeah,
everybody wins when women
everybody
have
wins.
access to power, especially marginalized women who are bringing compassion and understanding that is so unique to their experience that will benefit the whole. That will benefit the whole. Cheryl,
Hmm.
you're the greatest there ever was. It was such an honor to hear your just your mastery, your experience, just your
Yeah,
knowledge. Thank you so much. I know everyone is
yeah,
looking for it. Thank you,
yeah.
thank you, thank you. To find out more about Cheryl, you can look at the information below this video. Thanks so much.